And you're alive,
Oh,
sir.
howdy, folks. It looks like my head cut off down there, Beth. Can we haven't got new equipment yet, folks, so we're still working on some, which it doesn't need to be all the way down there anyway on the board because we don't have anything down here. And we got cousin Eddie right here. He was under my feet, so we got to move him. Wife is sneaking through here. Are you coming through here?
I'll go around.
Okay. Today, folks, we're going to get into the divided kingdom. This seems a little close to me, but right now, if I need to flip the board, I'll move it back. Kind of claustrophobic right in here. We changed the entire dining room, so we got new things going on, and it just we apologize for that. So we will get on our feet with proper equipment in here. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about, or how I see it. You can see it however you want to. I've seen, and I'm going to say them today, that mid-Acts will ask you, why the 13th apostle? Why Paul? And then they'll come up with all kinds of fairy tales and stuff like that. But what does the Bible say? And I believe we'll be able to talk about that in the next coming weeks and months. But we'll give a short description here today. We're going to go to Acts 9:15. And this is the words of Jesus Christ himself, what Paul is going to be doing. And to whom he's going to be going to. So let's go ahead and turn there. Acts 9:15. Why did Christ need another apostle? Well, if he commanded the 12 not to go into the way of the Gentiles and into Samaria, well, then who's going to do that? So basically what Christ was telling those 12, stay in Jerusalem and Judea. Okay, then who's going outside of that? Somebody's got to go outside of that. And that was Paul's job. Acts 9:15. Listen to these words, folks. God is telling Ananias, or Christ is telling Ananias, go thy way, for he, Saul, is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings. King Agrippa was one. And the children of Israel. Now, what happens in mid-Acts especially, and probably a lot of other denominations, and I do call mid-Acts a denomination, is that when they see the word Israel, they want to clump all Israel together. It's Israel. Well, you have to define, and Paul does define who Israel is in Romans 9, 10, and 11. He defines who Israel is. And you have to understand who the house of Israel is, or the children of Israel. If you do a search and look up children of Israel in your Bible, you'll find a majority of that in the Old Testament. You do see a few references in the New Testament, and Paul does use the term a couple times, children of Israel. And in Acts, Christ is using the three words, children of Israel. The words children of Israel means to all 12 tribes or from the 12 tribes. And we're going to look at today, we got a few references. I did not have it on there, and I just forgot to put it on there last week about King Solomon. And with all his wives, what did the law say about that? And why would that anger God? Besides the fact that he was chasing after other gods, and then eventually just Jehovah God was not on his mind. So Paul, being the 13th apostle, was to go to those people of the house of Israel, which is in Samaria, that the 12, Christ commanded them not to go to. Well, then who's going to go to those 10 tribes if the 12 apostles don't do it? We went to Jesus Christ, we did that last week about Jesus Christ and a Samaritan woman at the well. Christ can do that. Why? Because he's the creator of the universe. He can do whatever he wants to. But he can command his 12 apostles not to go into there unless they're with him. But he did not give that commandment to Paul. He said he is a chosen vessel, and he's going to go to the children of Israel, those other 10 tribes. And we're going to start getting into that today. But first, let's go back to 1 Kings. Solomon had a problem with women. He had a major problem with women. And let's see here, 1 Kings, blah, 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 da, 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 da. We will be in 1 Kings 11 and 12 today. And 1 Kings 11:3. And he, Solomon, had 700 wives, princes, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned his heart away. Well, of course, why did they do that? Well, there were Gentiles from the Amorites and all those ites he was taking wives from, and they worshiped Baal and all those other gods. So they turned Solomon's heart away. But he had 1,000 of these and princesses. And what did the law say? Well, let's go to Deuteronomy 17. This is under the law. Solomon should have known the law, being the wisest man on earth at the time. 17:14. The law of Moses says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord God giveth thee, and thou shalt possess it, and shalt dwell within, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, like all the nations that are about me. Well, how did Moses know this, when the only king to the Israelites at that time was God? Verse 15. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose, one from among thy brethren shall thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. That means not an Israelite. Verse 16. But this king shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that they shall multiply horses, for as much as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself. So should the King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines? Well, the law said no. Neither. That his heart turned not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. What about all those riches that King Solomon had? Where did he get it? What's he doing with it? According to the law. Verse 18. And it shall be, when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests of the Levites. Now, I don't know if Solomon did that or not. If he wrote it, the commandment here is that he should write to himself a copy of that, probably to reiterate to himself that he should not have 700 wives, 300 concubines, and all those, I don't know how many princesses. He had way too many according to God and according to the law of Moses. So I meant to get that on last week, and I just forgot to put the Deuteronomy reference on there, but we got that out of the way. Now, we're going to spend most of the time today in 1 Kings and 2 Kings, because now we're going to find out today, and maybe people were thinking, well, what does this in the world got to do with Romans 5:10, where Paul says, for if when we were enemies? Well, you got to find out, you got to go back to how did they, which I say is the Israelites, become enemies of God? Not everybody in the world. How did they become enemies of God? Well, you got to go back and trace that back. I used to be a bounty hunter, and I had to find people. We didn't have social media back then. So I had to do it the old-fashioned way. And you got to do it the old-fashioned way here, folks. You got to get in that book back there. We're here to study the Bible. We're not here to study Romans through Philemon, that denomination. We're not here to do that, because you will never understand what's going on in Romans through Philemon if you don't understand what's going on back here in the Old Testament. Now, I've got to show you something here, folks. This is the thickness of my Bible right here. And this right here, little bitty thickness right here, is up to Ruth. Now, the remainder of this Bible, and this is how I see it, is about the divided kingdom and how is God going to get that remnant back? And who is he going to use to do that? The remainder of that Bible is about that. Now, you can want to believe that. You don't have to. I don't care one way or the other. That's just how I see it today. Very small portion. Of course, there's Israelites during Ruth. They always had problems. Always. They never believed what God said. They never did exactly the covenant between them and God. They never kept their end of the bargain. That's why God always had them in captivity. God was always angry with them. And then once about 930 BC gets here, you have to imagine, folks, we're about 60-something years from the Civil War. And Rehoboam and Jeroboam never saw or was old enough to see the first king, King Saul. It's if you look at this, King Saul, King David, and King Solomon each reigned 40 years. But Rehoboam, he didn't make it 40 years. And no other king after that did either. So 40 years is a generation in God's eyes. You take 30 AD and 70 AD, there's a generation there that God was calling out the remnant of Israel. We've gone through that in the past. We may go over that again as I see other things in Scripture, but that's in the future. Let's go to 1 Kings 12. We're going to get on David's grandson, Rehoboam. At the end of, let's start in verse, the last of chapter 11. Let's see, we'll probably pick up a little bit here about Solomon. I don't have that on there, but we're going to look at it anyway. And the last few, maybe 10 verses of, maybe 13 of chapter 11. Solomon, at this point in time, is not obeying God. He's not keeping the statutes. He's not keeping the commandments. God is angry with Solomon, and now Solomon is out to kill Jeroboam. You can look at that in verse, let's start in 11:35. Yeah, let's go up one. Yeah, let's start in verse 33. There's a lot of gods in here, and Moabites, and all kinds of ice, but we got to get here. Because they have forsaken me and have worshipped Azareth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Shemos, the god of the Moab. Look at all those gods right there. And Milcom, the god, children of Ammon, have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in mine eyes, God says, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David, his father. Solomon didn't do that. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of Solomon's hands. God says, I'm not going to take it all from Solomon, but I am going to tear some of it away. But I will make him prince. Look at that, folks. He is no longer going to be a king in God's eyes. He's only going to be a prince over Judah. That's a downgrade. He didn't get a promotion. He got demoted. But I will make him prince of all the days of his life for David, my servant's sake. You got to understand, folks. God made a covenant, that Davidic covenant with David. God cannot lie. God cannot break his covenants. Man breaks God's covenants, but God doesn't break those covenants. He made a covenant with David. David is now dead and gone. But that doesn't stop God from keeping his end of the bargain. whom I choose because of my commandments and my statutes. But now I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand, David's son, Solomon, and will give it unto thee, who? Jeroboam. Jeroboam is down in Egypt. And unto his son will I give one tribe. He's going to give Solomon one tribe, and that's Judah. Well, the Davidic covenant says that Christ is going to come through the son of David. Got to keep that bloodline going through that one tribe. He's the king of Judah, right? Or the lion of Judah. That David, my servant, may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. And I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all. Now he's saying to Jeroboam here, folks. God is talking to Jeroboam. And this is what he says in verse 37. And I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth. And thou shalt be king over Israel. Here, folks, God is telling Jeroboam, you can do whatever your heart desires. I'm going to make you king in what is now going to be a divided kingdom, and that those 10 tribes are now going to be called Israel. Israel is no longer 12 tribes. I don't care how far you go up into the book, Hebrews through Revelation, Israel is no longer a united kingdom, one kingdom. It is now a divided kingdom with two houses, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And from now on, from this point on, folks, every time you see the word Israel in your Bible, you better know, is it the children of Israel, which is all 12 tribes, or is it the house of Israel, which is the 10 northern tribes? The Jew comes from Judah. That's why Christ, last week we went through that for a long time when Christ said salvation is of the Jews to the Samaritan woman who was from the house of Israel. And so you got to separate the house of Israel, and the children of Israel, and you got to study that context to see whom the writer is speaking to and about. And if you want to do what most people do today, put all Israel into one bucket and call it the 12 tribes, you've already lost on the majority of this Bible about who Israel is. Verse 38, and it shall be, if thou wilt, hearken unto me all that I command thee, and will walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes as my commandments, as David my servant did, I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I have built for David, and will give Israel unto thee. But when you tell a man he can do whatever his heart desires, oh, God knew he just opened up a floodgate right there. He knew Jeroboam, like his previous fathers, could not do anything that God just sat there and told him. He knew that from experience. None of them ever did. They couldn't. Verse 39, and I will for this afflict the seed of David. Oh, he's going to cause some pain to the seed of David. But not, as he says, forever. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. Well, why does he want to kill Jeroboam? Well, Solomon probably already got the memo from God that I'm going to tear this kingdom apart. You're no longer going to be a king. You're going to be a prince. And only over one tribe. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt, and Shishak, king of Egypt, was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. So Jeroboam, to keep from Solomon killing him, chopping off his head, he runs off. Solomon's fixing to die. And the rest of acts of Solomon and all that he did and his wisdom are they not written in the acts of Solomon? Folks, I don't know about you, but I'd like to have my hands on the Acts of Solomon. Where is that book at? I want to know. I want to know what all was in there. It's not in my Bible. And the rest of the Acts, okay, we just read that. And that's a question mark. Are they not written in the Acts of Solomon? 42. And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. This is the last time you're going to see 40 years as a king over Israel or Judah. It's no longer a 40-year reign. And Solomon slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, his father. And Rehoboam, Solomon's son, reigned in his stead. He became king. Now, here's the two characters right here, folks. You have Rehoboam, Solomon's son, now over the house of Judah, not Israel. And you have Jeroboam, by a decree from God himself, over the 10 northern tribes. And now let's head into chapter 12. And Rehoboam went to Shechem. Where in the world is Shechem? Well, you have to look this stuff up, folks. When somebody says something like that, my mind starts thinking, I start scratching my head. Where's Shechem? What is it? What's going on there? You can go all the way back to Genesis and find out where that is. When the Samaritan woman sat there and told Christ, oh, the Jews have nothing to do with us, but our fathers have always worshipped here. And they did. Samaria being the capital of Samaria, Shechem is right to the southeast of that. And you got to get that old Bible map out, and you got to find out where these places are and ask yourself, why, if I was the king, the kingdom's not divided as of yet. There's fixing to be one couple things going on right here in this chapter that is going to finalize, and it's going to be the fault of Rehoboam, not Jeroboam. Why, if I'm the king, why would I go up into Samaria? Why doesn't the 10 tribes come down to me in Jerusalem? I can sit here in my big chair. Why can't that happen? Well, as I see it, the Jews have always worshipped there. The mountains are there when Jacob and all of them first came through. Abraham was over in that area. That's why the Samaritan woman said, all of our fathers worshipped here. David and God went down to Jerusalem, made that the capital city. God chose it. David made that the capital. Verse 1 again. For all Israel were to come to Shechem to make him king. All Israel was to come over there, all 12 tribes, to make Rehoboam king because Solomon just died, his daddy. Verse 2. And it came to pass when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt, that they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, here is the communications that they're trying to have, iron out the problems that we have here, folks. We got some issues, and if you will help us, we can stay one kingdom. Well, let's go on down here and see what happened. Verse 3, we just read it. Thy father. Well, let's pick it up right here. The congregation came and spake unto Rehoboam the king, saying, thy father made our yoke grievous. Solomon, thy grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke, which he put upon us, lighter, and we will serve. Let me read verse 4 again. Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now, therefore, Rehoboam, if you will make thou the grievous service of thy father, Solomon, and take the heavy yoke which is upon us, make it lighter, we will serve thee. I went through this when I first started this series, but we need to go over it again. Israel Solomon, in order to build these massive structures and do all he did, who did he use for slave labor? Who did he make do these things? The children of Israel. Not only did he make them labor, he taxed them. You got to have money to do this stuff. And he said unto them, depart yet for 3 days. Folks, if you'll look around, I don't care where you find it in your Bible, 3 days is all over this place. Then come again to me, and the people departed. And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon, his father. These are the wise men, if you will, that hung out with Solomon while he did all these miracles, all this wisdom of things that he went through. These men helped Solomon, his wise men, if you will. So Jeroboam goes and gets their opinion first. Well, if you know anything about it, probably like today, if you take a teenager or someone in their 20s, someone like me, he's just an old fart. What does he know? He's an antique. He's around with the Model Ts. We have internet today. He didn't have internet. And I can understand. I was probably like that myself. Verse 6, and the king Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon, his father, while he yet lived. And he said, how do you advise that I may answer this people? Help me. I need your advice here today. Am I going to take it? I'm not going to, but I want your advice. And they spake unto him, saying, if thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and will serve them. A king, a good king anyway, is to serve the people. It's like Congress is to serve the Americans, not the other way around. And answer them and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. Now we need to stop right here. So Solomon is riding these folks like Seabiscuit. I mean, he's working them and he's ruling with whips. His own people, his own kinsmen, taxing them. But what did God tell Solomon to say to people when they first asked for a king? Now, these people living now didn't ask for the king. They grew up under a king. Because none of them was over 120 years old. None of them probably, it may have been a handful that may have seen Saul, but it had been probably very few back in those days. So why did they have such a heavy yoke on them? Well, let's go back and see what God told Samuel, and Samuel told King Saul and the nation of Israel at that time. You have to go back to 1 Samuel 8. 1 Samuel 8, and we're picking up in verse 11. Let's go 10, because this is what Samuel says. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked him of a king. So God told Samuel, and Samuel said, folks, this is, you asked for a king. You asked me to ask God for a king. And I'm going to tell you now, folks, don't ask for anything you don't want, because you're fixing to get it. And you ain't going to like it. But what they say anyway, give us a king. We want one. And this is what God said, told Samuel to tell him. Verse 11, and he said, this will be the manner of king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons. He didn't volunteer, as for, he's going to take them. Servants, armies, and appoint them himself for his chariots, and to be his horsemen. And some shall run before his chariots. Infantry. And he will appoint him captains over thousands and captains over 50s, and will set them to hear his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war, and instruments of chariots. And he will take your daughters to be bakers, cooks, confectionaries. I need that sugar sprinkle on top of my cake. I'm taking your daughter. She's a good baker. Take her. And he will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive lands, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. And he will take the tenth of your seed. Not only, folks, was the Levites supposed to get the tenth, Solomon took the tenth, David took it, King Saul took it, because God said that's what was going to happen. You don't want me, king? Now you're fixing to get what you want. And what did it eventually come down to, folks, in the Matthews, Marks, and Lukes, and Johns of it all? They couldn't even see that much. The Pharisees, Sadducees, and couldn't see. We had no king but Caesar. I think the law said, folks, back there, didn't it say that? That you should not have a stranger as king over you? All of Israel at the time of Christ was breaking the law. What? We won't have no king. We have no king but Caesar. That's how bad it was. You think it's bad during Rehoboam and Jeroboam. During the time of Christ, he didn't know his own people. He came unto his own, and his own knew him not. They should have. But anyway, chapter 8. And he gave it to his officers and servants, and he would take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses and put them to his work. He will take the tenth of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants. So by the time you mosey on down to 120 years, what's happened? Well, of course, men, when God says you can do whatever your heart desires, that especially when it comes to money, folks, what's a man going to do? He's going to take all he can get. And that was the problem here at 1 Kings. Back to 1 Kings 12. Take them in their place. Verse 8, for he forsook the counsel of the old men. So Rehoboam did not want to listen to the old men, which they had given, and consulted with the young men, the high school football team. You know how cocky they are. Oh, they think because they win a game or they're the quarterback, they know it all. And he consulted with the young men that were grown up with him and which stood before him. And he said unto them, what counsel give ye that we may answer the people who have spoken to me, saying, make the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter? And the high school team said this. And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, thy father made our yoke heavy, but make it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, my little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. Now, whereas my father did laid, or even a bill of laid in today is still a term that's used today. And let's say a ship is laid in with cargo. As did laid you with heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father has chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Not physical scorpions. They're actually like similar to a cat of nine tails. No longer a whip now, folks. He's going to beat these people with something that's worse with a whip. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had appointed, saying, come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly. He wasn't very nice. The old folks said, hey, good words. Be gentle with them. Be a servant unto them. No, Rehoboam wanted to put his thumb on their head even harder. You can only take so much of that. Now we're fixing to have a civil war. And forsook the young men's counsel that they gave unto him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord, that he might perform him, saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, here we go, folks. Here is a pivotal verse. And you need, if you're out talking to people, especially in those mid-acts groups, you got to define who Israel is for them, because they have no idea. They really don't know. They think all of Israel, when Hosea says, lo am I, they think it's all Israel. It was only the 10 northern tribes that Hosea was primarily writing to. Isaiah was writing to Judah and Jerusalem. But they don't know that. They've never been told that. You need to tell them that. Define who the house of Israel is, the children of Israel, and try to talk to them. They probably will not listen to you. I understand that. I do. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David? You're king over Jerusalem. God told Jeroboam that he's going to rip the kingdom. And the 10 tribes up north, the house of Israel, how can we get down to worship and be part of the house of David? How can we get that? How can we be in the temple to do our worships, our sacrifices? And with a question there. Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse in your tents. O Israel. O Israel. From this point on, folks, when Israel is mentioned, it's the house of Israel. Let's go up there and look at it. They say Hebrews through Revelation is ages to come, but let's go to Hebrews. We were there a week or two ago, but we got to read it again. Hebrews. If I can find it. It's been a while since I've been in Hebrews. I've been in the Old Testament for a while. Verse 8, Hebrews 8:8. Now, this is another question you can ask your futurist folks, and I did ask one, and I didn't get an answer. Is there going to be a house of Israel and a house of Judah in this so-called future tribulation that they talk about? This Jacob's trouble. Is there going to be two, or is it going to be one? Is it going to be a united kingdom, or is there going to be two houses? Well, that's a question you have to ask. Hebrews 8:8, for finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. You can go to Jeremiah 31:31, find that. And with the house of Judah. There's two houses in Hebrews. So even in your New Testament, folks, there's two houses. The house of Israel. From the point where Jeroboam says, O Israel, to your tents. Let's go back there. 1 Kings. First Kings 12. Where was we? Oh, Israel. King hearken, children of Israel, go see. Speaking of counsel, I'm right in the right area. So when all Israel saw the king hearken, David, O Israel, in verse 16, verse 16, O Israel, now see to thine own house. David, so Israel departed under their tents. The 10 tribes departed to their tent. Rehoboam is still in their neck of the woods. He's up in Samaria. He has made some people mad. You would think if you're up there, but he wasn't thinking that. He's a king over Israel, so hey, I can do what I want. I'm safe. But they've had enough. Verse 18 or 17. But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, you got those, there are people from the 10 tribes that lived in Jerusalem. Rehoboam reigned over them. That was their home. They stayed there. Verse 18, then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones. Then he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. Well, Rehoboam's right-hand man, he sends him over there. Get these people in line. And what does Israel do? They smash his brains in, just like they did Stephen. Acts 7, 8. They smash his brains in. Now, Rehoboam's scared. He's trying to get the fastest Uber, calling up Uber, get the fastest chariot to get to Jerusalem. He's in the wrong neck of the woods. 19. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. We'll wait on time. 42. And it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. We now have 2 kings, folks. We have Jeroboam, king over Israel, 10 tribes. Rehoboam's in the south, Jerusalem. He just fled. He is the king over Judah and Jerusalem. From now on, folks, if you're reading about Israel, you need to ask yourself, is this children of Israel? Is it Israel, the 10 tribes? There's a lot of studying here to do, folks. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. Isn't that what God said would happen? Only one tribe, and that would be Judah? Well, how are we going to have priests in Judah down to in Jerusalem at the temple doing all the sacrifices? Well, those Levites that lived there, Rehoboam still reigned over them. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, as he assembled all the house of Judah, and with the tribe of Benjamin, who was part of, who was from the tribe of Benjamin? O Saul of Tarsus. And 184,000 chosen men, which were warriors to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom against Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. But the word of God came unto Shimei, the man of God, saying, speak unto Rehoboam. Here's another prophet. The prophets are going to have a major factor in the rest of your Old Testament. He told him, hey, speak unto Rehoboam, son, king of Judah, and unto the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people. What remnant of what people? Well, it's those people from the northern 10 tribes that were living in Jerusalem and Judah. That's the remnant of those people. Thus saith the Lord, ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brother, the children of Israel. Not Israel, the children of Israel. Do you think there was someone from the tribe of Judah living up north somewhere? Maybe in Galilee or something? Bethlehem? Don't go fight against them, God tells the prophet, nor against the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me. They hearkened therefore to the word of the Lord, and returned to depart according to the word of the Lord. Rehoboam listened to the prophet, which was wise. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount of Ephraim, and dwelt therein, and went out from thence, and built Peniel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall a kingdom return to the house of David. If this people go up and do sacrifice in the house of the Lord of Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn against unto the Lord, even unto Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they shall kill me, and go again to Rehoboam, king of Judah. Whereupon the king took counsel and made two calves of gold. I'm wondering, folks, how many times are we going to do this? How many times was Israel going to? It's not only one this time by the hands of Aaron. Now it didn't work out the first time, so let's double dose it and let's build two of them things. Let's see how that works out for us. It didn't work out good the first time because all those people didn't get into the promised land. But if we do it enough, we're going to change God's mind, and he will say, well, it's okay this time. Hogwash. But they did it anyway. So he built these two calves and said unto them, it is too much for you to go to Jerusalem. Folks, that's too far for you to go to Jerusalem. Jeroboam says, it's a long journey, and they're just going to kill you anyway. They don't like us now. Rehoboam will probably make a worse slave out of you what you are already. It's too far. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And he sent one in Bethel and the other one in Dan. And this thing became a sin. What did? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. I think that's in the 10 Commandments. That even these 10 tribes said, oh, if you tell us, we'll do it. Actually, will you do anything, God? You tell us, we'll do it. We can do those 10, no problem. And this thing became a sin for the people went to worship before the one, even the one at Dan. And he made a house of high places and made priests of the lowest of people, which were not the sons of Levi. Levi, the tribe of Levi, what was their jobs? The Levites. They functioned in the temple. Did they not? They're the priesthood. So Jeroboam says, well, we're going to take the people down to bottom, and we're going to rise them up try to bring them up like cream. The steerage, if you will. You Levites, go do something else. We're going to do it our way now. But that was against the law of Moses. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month. Who is Jeroboam to ordain anything? And I believe the feast is supposed to be in the 7th month. On the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah, and he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of high places, which he had made. So when God says, Jeroboam, you can do whatever your heart desires, and I will take care of you if you keep my commandments and statutes. The first thing was he did what his heart desired, and he did not keep the statutes and commandments of God, the 10, and everything that was written in the law of Moses. Now he is out doing his own thing, changing the feast days, putting people in there that are not Levites for the priesthood, and it only gets worse. And how does this have to do with Romans 5:10? Just builds up, folks. It builds up, and the more we get into this, hopefully you can see. So he offered upon the altar, verse 33, which he had made in Bethel, the 15th day of the month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart. Well, God said he can do that. And what's he doing? He's doing it, devising his own heart. And ordained a feast unto the children of Israel. And he offered upon the altar and burnt incense. Now, it doesn't say there, folks, that, let's go back and read that. It does not say that he ordained a feast unto the house of Israel. He said unto the children of Israel. So that tells me there's the tribes of Judah. There's folks from the tribe of Judah and Benjamin up in that area living there. He says the children of Judah here. Words we got to look out for. So Jeroboam is creating his own religion based off what God says, but he's just changing the rules to suit his own fancy. Now let's go back to Shechem. We go back to Joshua because Rehoboam's in Shechem up in Samaria. Let's go back to Joshua, last chapter. Take a gander at that. And you can go do a word. You can find some more Shechems if you want to. Chapter 24, verse 23. Now, therefore, put away, said he, the strange gods which are among you. We still got the same problem in Jeroboam. These strange gods, 2 calves this time. Solomon had that problem. That's why God was angry with Solomon because of all the wives he took in that were Gentiles. And incline your heart unto the Lord, God of Israel. And the people said unto Joshua, the Lord our God will we serve. Well, it's funny. Jeroboam and all those folks forgot that commitment, didn't they? And his voice, we will obey. Well, Solomon didn't obey it. Of course, David didn't obey it. And King Saul didn't obey it. None of them obeyed God. But there was one after God's own heart. And God mentions it many a time. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day and set them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. You go find it more. There was an oak tree back then. I'm sure it's not there today. And they did all these things. They built altars in the under the oak tree in Shechem. I guess it was the only oak tree. I don't know. We're in Missouri, hardwood all over. We have white oak, black oak, all different types of oak here. Verse 32. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem in a parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver, and it became the inheritance of the children of Joseph. So, folks, when Christ is talking to the Samaritan woman at the well, and she said, all of our fathers worshipped here. They did. Then they migrated down to Jerusalem. But in the area of Samaria is where they all landed at. And she was correct in saying that to Christ. He didn't deny that. And you go back and read the stories about how they all worshiped there. That's where they landed. That was the promised land. Now let's go to 2 Kings 17. We'll wrap this hour up. Let's see what these two characters are doing. 17 verse 13. Now here's the Lord, and he himself is saying there are two different houses in verse 13. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers. A seer could see what God told him. He could see it. Saying, turn ye from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servant the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear it. When Moses went on that mountain for 40 days, they didn't want to hear it. He came down. They didn't want to hear it until God's up there shaking that mountain. The lightnings and the thunders. Oh, and an earthquake and swallow some of them. All they heard that day. But it hardened their necks like the neck of their fathers that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain and went after the heathen that were about them, just like King Solomon, concerning whom the Lord had charged him that they shall not do like them. Don't marry them. Don't hang out with them. Don't go have a beer with them. Don't buy them a pack of cigarettes. Don't nothing with them. Because a little leaven leavens a whole loaf. And they left all the commandments of the Lord to God and made them molten images, 2 calves, and made a grove and worshiped all the hosts of heaven and served Baal. Hosts of heaven. What do you think that was? Probably the moon. The moon being, if you'll look it up, who's the moon god? It's around today. Islam. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire. You don't know what that is? Sacrifice. And used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight, and there was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Here we go, folks. Jeroboam started this other calves. Judah jumps right in. They're not as bad as the house of Israel, but they're right behind it. God's sick and tired of it. He removes them all, but the house of Judah, the tribe of Judah only. And Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord, their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them in the hand of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel, tore apart from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from the following the Lord and made them sin a great sin. And here it gets worse. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight. And he had said by the servants of the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. Okay, folks, we're going to look at one verse here before we wrap this up. The Lord removes Israel out of his sight. Let's go to Hosea. Hosea 1:1. The word of the Lord that came unto Hosea the son of Beeri in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam the son of Joash, king of Israel. When you start linking these prophets, folks, and you'll look at them, these prophets are going to these folks. You have Hosea. Now, God has tore. He's sick of them. He's angry with them. Out of sight. Now, what's he do? It says it right there. And the days of Jeroboam, Hosea now, this prophet, is going to go to those 10 tribes. God's mercy, folks. He's merciful. So when Paul is going to the children of Israel, saying, God will have mercy on you, begging them, pleading with them to return to God. What did he do in Acts 9? He went into the synagogues preaching Christ the Messiah. And don't tell me that because God changed the method of salvation when he called Saul in chapter 9 that something changed. Saul was supposed to go to and find that remnant, those that would believe. And as we always say here, the mud does clear when you actually rightly divide the word of truth. I can't touch it.